Hey guys, Topher here. I am back at my car after going for a little bit of a walk around Melbourne City. I didn't want to go live during my walk because there was too much of a risk that once the police saw where my location was, that they would come and grab me. I'm sure a lot of you have watched Rukshan's feed, and I thank him once again for his fantastic work. His work ethic is phenomenal, and the fact that he's just out there coming back time and time again just speaks volumes about his commitment to his craft as an independent journalist. Today, as you saw, if you watched any of Rukshan's video, you saw that there really was nothing to see, and this is the second day in a row where that's been the case. I didn't come in yesterday, but like you, I was wondering what was going on, and no one went live. Today I did come in, and I've gone for a bit of a walk and played Dodgem Cops for a little while in the hope of stumbling on a group of people that were, creating that critical mass. That getting things started is the most difficult thing. And when you've got anti-terror police with shoot on sight orders, I was about to say shoot to kill. We're not quite there yet, but with Daniel Andrews in charge, there's no knowing. With shoot on sight orders for protesters. And you've got police on every single street corner demanding papers, please. I mean, what level of historical ignorance do you have to be willing to stand there in uniform as an agent of the state demanding to see people's paperwork on street corners? I mean, that's damn, we are in a dangerous place. We are in a very, very dangerous moment in our state's history. I believe it's fair now, and if you look at Rukshan's footage, I believe it is fair to say that Melbourne is now a police city. Victoria is now a police state. I think that's not hype, in my opinion. That's not me being dramatic. That's not me trying to use shock tactics, shock jock language. I think it's a literal and accurate description of what we are seeing on the streets of Melbourne right now. We are now a police state. That's what we are. Melbourne City is under police curfew and complete police lockdown. They are, like I said, demanding to see people's paperwork just for the crime of walking down the street in a manner that might not be approved by the government. So, in terms of the protests, I know there's a lot of people going, oh no, the protests are failing. Does this mean this is kind of the end of the movement? Does this mean that Daniel Andrews has won? No, not at all. Let's not forget that up until Monday of this week, the protests were happening once or twice a month, and we had large groups of people coming together. We had a number of successful protests back to back for month after month, where the police used new levels of tactics to try and stop us, and each time the organisers pivoted their strategy, and every single time we got a group together and we actually had a successful protest despite the police's escalating violence and despite their escalating tactics and techniques to try and stop us. And that was the case all the way up until Saturday, which was the last sort of big protest that had been pre-organised by the people that have been working on this and organising these protests over the last year and a half. And then Monday, everything exploded with the tradies, and that shifted everything. It changed the whole landscape of everything. And the people who'd been organising protests up until that point in time were not involved in what happened with the tradies. That was their own thing that suddenly started. And we all saw the scenes from Monday out the front of the CFMEU. We all saw John Setka completely betray his membership base. We all know how that kind of played out over the following days. Monday was huge. Tuesday was huge. Wednesday, I finally was able to get in. And again, this is not, these weren't organised by the same people that have been organising previous protests and learned lessons along the way. I mean, they've done an amazing job. This is not a criticism on them overall, but I think even they would admit that they haven't done everything perfectly. They haven't done everything exactly right. And I think an example of that would be, for example, the protest that was organised last year to go to the shrine. And they haven't done another one of those since. They haven't organised another protest at the shrine because I think once all of that played out, they went, you know what, we're not happy with the fact that we did it that way, and they didn't organise another one at the shrine. Now, all of a sudden, we have a whole bunch of new people that have jumped into the movement on Monday, and they've got their own particular angle on it. I mean, they're coming from the point of view of being a tradie, being a CFMEU member, and anger at their union and the betrayal of John Setka, which I think is completely justified. But this is a whole new angle and a whole bunch of new people that came in on Monday, full of energy, full of angst, ready to go toe-to-toe with the police, which is not the ideal approach, but nevertheless, that's where they came in from. And we tried to support them because we were happy to have new people on board. We were happy to have the energy, because some of us, myself and many others, I'm certainly not the only one, we've been doing this for a long time now. We've been in the spotlight for a long time now. I've been living with the thought that I could be arrested at home. The car door closes out the front of my house, and the thought crosses your mind. You can't help but have the thought cross your mind. Is this the cops? Have they finally come? They've been to my house multiple times, but they haven't been there to arrest me yet. So we've been living with that. Myself and many others have been living with that for a very long time. So it was nice to have the energy, to have the new blood coming into the movement. But there was also the naivety that comes with that. And I think we saw that play out on Wednesday with the people that stayed back at the shrine. I think it was motivated by this naivety that if we just stand our ground, we can win this. Well, no, you're not winning it in a day. You're not even winning it in 3 days. This has months to go. We've been at this for 1.5 years, and there's months to go. And playing the long game is actually more important than some futile stand. And of course, Wednesday finished in some fairly ugly scenes, things that I certainly never wanted to happen, and the police never wanted to happen. But unfortunately, things just played out the way they played out, and people wouldn't go home. And despite me asking and other people asking, they wouldn't go home, and so we ended up with the scenes that we had there at the shrine. Then, as a result of that, so actually, let me say, I haven't mentioned, we ended up at the shrine because Victoria Police rolled out the anti-terror squad, and they brought out an armoured vehicle. Now, I said we're a police state now. How can you say we're not a police state? If the government is rolling out anti-terror squads, the people that are supposed to protect us in the case of a siege situation like the Bataclan siege that happened in France, in the case of a terrorist attack, a bomb going off, these sorts of things, that's when they bought this equipment and when they created this squad, that's what we were told it was about. It turns out, in truth, it was actually about driving down the middle of a street, standing on an armoured vehicle and shooting less lethal projectiles at unarmed civilians. That's actually why that squad exists. We now know, because that's how they've been deployed. That's how they've been used. This is the very definition of a police state. And so, yes, we ended up back at the shrine. No, those of us who have been in this movement for 1.5 years, we did not want to go there. That's not what we wanted. Because we'd been there once before and we realized that wasn't good. That wasn't the right thing to have done. And we learnt from that mistake. But now we had all these new people, all this new blood, and they were seeking refuge. They were looking for somewhere where they believed that they were going to be safe from being fired upon by the police, and they picked the shrine. And once the crowd makes that decision, those of you that watch my live streams from the protests, you understand I talk a lot about the decision-making process of crowds and how that kind of plays out, and no one's in charge, no one's in control. And ultimately, the crowd made that decision, and away they went. So we all coalesced around that decision because we need to stay together as a group, and then things played out as they did. One of the things that I've been concerned about since Monday, and with this new group coming in, is how long these guys are going to last. Because that naivety, that high energy, every day, okay, great. If you're showing up to a picket line, every day is a relatively easy thing to sustain. If you are running around the city going toe-to-toe with riot police who have no problem, shooting you point blank in the face, picking you up and dumping you onto the ground so that your skull gets cracked open, that's a harder thing to sustain every day, right? That's a much more difficult thing. And I've had in the back of my mind the concern that these people were going to burn out very, very quickly. And I think that's what we've seen over the last 2 days. So there's a lot of people going, oh no, the protest movement is failing. No. The newcomers who have just come in, angry at their union, high energy, fresh legs, they came in with the wrong strategy and they've burnt themselves out. That's what's happened. The actual underlying freedom movement that has now been going on for 18 months, what's happened in the last couple of days is not a reflection at all on that movement. And we may need to change tactics now because we can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again. The police are responding. The police are using new tactics. We're going to need to bring in new tactics in what we do, and I look forward to what the organisers have to say about what their plans are going forward. But rest assured, what we're seeing is the burning out of a flash in the pan from some tradies who are angry at their union and angry at mandatory vaccinations. I hope to see them learn the lesson from the last 5 days and start to join the overall freedom movement. They'd be very, very welcome to join us, but they need to adjust their approach and they need to adjust their timeline, and they need to realize that this is a war, not a battle. We're not going to win this in a simple, if we just stand our ground until midnight tonight, we're going to win this fight. No, you're not. This has months to run. So I want to encourage you. Today, yesterday, definitely disappointing compared to the earlier on in the week. Definitely disappointing. Understandable, given the way that the police are behaving, given the level of violence, given the fact that they're literally rolling out the anti-terror squad and armoured vehicles. I can understand it. I'm certainly not going to criticise anyone for not wanting to be on the receiving end of all of that. I walked around the city for a while, played dodge 'em cops, never really got all the way into the city, just in an effort to avoid being stopped and questioned, because if they realise who I am, I'll get arrested. So I'm not going to criticise anybody else for also taking a cautious approach, because I've done the same thing. I've taken a cautious approach. But these protests, these daily protests that we've seen since Monday, they are not reflective of the overall freedom movement, and the overall freedom movement is going to continue. There are, in my opinion, two peaceful strategies left. We have two peaceful options left for fighting this fight and trying to move forward and taking back our country and taking back our freedoms, the freedoms that were given to us by our ancestors, were fought for by our ancestors, and now are being taken off us, not from an enemy from overseas, but from an enemy in Spring Street. The two peaceful options that we have left are protest. And when I say peaceful, I mean we're being peaceful. It's very clear the government is not being peaceful in return. Peaceful protest, they are making that harder and harder. And I'll talk about the implications of that in just a minute. But the other peaceful option is civil disobedience, right? No one has to get hurt through civil disobedience. And I'm really encouraged, as I've travelled around, yes, well and truly outside my 10-kilometre limit, you can come and get me. As I've travelled around, I've seen a whole bunch of work sites that are open, and people are working and people are building. People are renovating, people are landscaping. I'm seeing coffee shops where less than half the people are wearing masks. I'm seeing parks that are packed, including with kids that are over 12 years old, by the way. This absurd nonsense. Oh, you can only take your kid if they're 12 years old or under. I'm seeing families there with both parents rather than just the one. I'm seeing people getting on with life. And that's exactly what we need to do. We need to stop complying. Good people break bad laws. The laws that have been imposed on us by Daniel Andrews are completely disproportionate to the threat of the coronavirus. There is a threat. I'm not a coronavirus denier at all, and you'll see that from my work right from the very beginning, from March 2020. I'm not a coronavirus denier. There is a threat, but these responses are completely disproportionate to it, and they are well and truly beyond the authority of the government to do. So we are entirely within our rights to break bad laws. And that's what I've been doing all the way through, and that is the other peaceful option that we have left, and to simply set a good example for others. If you are not wearing a mask, you need to be the nicest and most polite person on that street. Okay? Don't be an asshole. Even if someone comes and has a go at you, don't be an asshole back. Right? If you are choosing to engage in civil disobedience, you need to be the adult in the room, no matter what anybody else does, no matter what anybody else says. And you need to be willing to be gracious to people who would never extend that same courtesy back to you. That's so important. If you're in a bad mood, if you're hangry, if you're whatever, you go into the shops, just put a mask on. If you're in a bad mood and you're going to have a go at someone that has a go at you, just put a mask on, get some shopping, get some food, and then when you're feeling better, you're not you when you're hungry, that Snickers ad, all right, then take the mask off, because you can treat people nicely at that point. Don't go out there being an asshole to people while engaging in civil disobedience, please. That doesn't help any of us. So civil disobedience, I think, is going to become a more and more and more important tactic, because you can do it where you are. It's not a high risk to you. It's a high risk to come in and protest right now with the police state that we've got. It's not a high risk for you to come in, for you to stay in your area and engage in peaceful, gracious, friendly civil disobedience right where you are. And I think that's going to become a more and more important tactic. But the other thing that you need to know is that the protests are not over. The tradie protests may be fizzling out. Obviously, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and I don't know what's going to happen going forward. But as things stand right now, on Friday the 24th of September 2021, the tradie protests have the appearance of having been a flash in the pan. They started on Monday. By Thursday, they were almost gone. Friday, now they're basically gone. Okay? That is not reflective of the overall freedom movement. So please don't lose hope. Don't despair. Don't think that this is over, that everyone's given up and gone home. What we had was a new group come in with the wrong strategy, the wrong tactics, a lot of energy, but not a lot of perspective. And they hopefully will begin to join us, and we will begin to combine, and they can bring their energy, and we will bring the tactics and the strategy and the overall long game perspective, and hopefully by combining our forces in that way, we can continue to build the momentum. So don't lose hope. Don't be discouraged by what we've seen, or what we haven't seen, I guess is probably the better way to put it, over the last 2 days. So they are my thoughts as I'm unpacking and I'm processing what we've seen in the last little while. It's certainly been an interesting week. It's been an exhausting week. Rukshan needs sleep, and his muscles must be absolutely killing him. I suspect that he'll be out again tomorrow, just in case something does come together. And we'll see whether something comes together tomorrow. Of course, I can't predict that. I don't know. But if it doesn't, then I would say that is the end of the tradie centric movement, and I would encourage all the tradies, don't lose hope, don't lose focus, just hook in with the rest of us, join forces with those of us that have been doing this now for a year and a half, and let's work together on a longer term perspective, a slower tempo. This everyday stuff, it's not sustainable. All right, you can't do that when you're getting shot at by the cops, when you're getting chased around the city, when the stakes are as high as they are. It's not sustainable to be coming out every day. And so coming back to a tempo of every couple of weeks or every month or so, which is the tempo that we've been sustaining for some time, that is a sustainable tempo, and we can build that. We had some really successful, some really big rallies before the police just became outright tyrannical, outright brutally violent, shoot on sight type of approach. That's definitely hurt the numbers, and that may very well continue to hurt the numbers going forward. But the movement is not over. And even if the protests are too risky for you, or even if you aren't able to make it into the city or what have you, there's lots of legitimate reasons why people wouldn't be able to or wouldn't want to attend the protests. You can still engage in peaceful civil disobedience where you are, and you can still take a stand and still set an example by doing that. So that, I think, is where we're at. Please be encouraged, or more specifically, don't be discouraged by what you've seen. What you've seen is not reflective of the overall movement. It is reflective of a sub-movement of tradies that has the appearance at the moment, and I mean no disrespect to anybody, but it has the appearance at the moment of having been a flash in the pan. But the movement is going to continue to move forward, and I'm certainly going to continue to move forward. So people are saying, can you please check on Rukshan? His live feed was abruptly cut off today. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. So I'll send him a text, and I'll check in to make sure that he's okay. But I suspect that there may have been a connection issue or something like that. The police may have once again blocked streaming, which I'm told they did yesterday. I cannot verify that, but I'm told that that's one of the things that happened yesterday. It may have happened again today. Yeah. Complicated times, and I can understand people being overwhelmed, people being exhausted. I certainly feel that, and I can understand why someone would feel that there is no hope, but there is. There are still very good people working very hard. Some people visible like myself, but for every one of me that there's a hell of a lot of people working unseen, in the shadows, and helping to continue this fight and continue this push to get back the freedoms that are our birthright in this state. So don't lose hope, and just please continue to engage in peaceful, gracious, friendly civil disobedience. Get on with your life. Good people break bad laws. Till next time.